There's been a lot of great Marvel Legends made over the years, but my personal favorites were all made by Toy Biz, and Toy Biz only had the Marvel Legends brand for a few years. About 4 years they worked on it before it went to Hasbro, but in those 4 years, they did a lot with it, and today we're going to take a look at some of the best figures that they made during that 4-year reign. And if you support what I do, please click subscribe and hit the bell for notification so you don't miss a single video of mine when it comes out. And if you'd like to support the channel even more, we now have memberships. Perks include exclusive badges and emotes, priority responses to comments, early access to videos, members-only videos, and members-only live streams. Be sure you stick around for our honorable mention, and with that, let's take a look at my top 5 Marvel Legends of all time. The 5th best Marvel Legend of all time is Doctor Doom from Series 2. This was a revelation to me when I first saw this toy. The quality of Doctor Doom was absolutely amazing. He doesn't have a lot of articulation in the torso, he's very limited in that area, and he's only got single joints on his elbows and knees. But the detail, the attention to it on this toy is a work of art. One of the coolest things about this toy, I thought, was that you could take the pistol out of the holster on his side. When I first got this toy, I didn't even realize you could do that until I examined him very closely and took the gun out of there, and I realized, whoa, this isn't just sculpted on, this is actually usable. His hands are also a couple of very nice features on him because one hand forms a fist and the other hand forms a pointer finger, and it reminded me very much of the energy blast that Doctor Doom would fire in various cartoons that I saw of him. And if that wasn't enough, he also has a removable mask where if you take it off, you can see Victor Von Doom under there. The mask is not easily removable, it stays very well on him. You can take it off with a little bit of work, but otherwise it's gonna stay on there. One last really cool thing about this toy is that if you lift the cape up and check Doctor Doom's back, you'll see he's wearing a jetpack, and I think that's just a really nice touch. You would never know it's there unless you lift that cape up. The attention to detail in this toy was absolutely incredible for both the time and today, honestly. And to this day, I absolutely love this one. The 4th best Marvel Legend of all time is Face Off Hulk, and I think this is going to come as a surprise to a lot of people, but this action figure is really great. This is another one where the articulation on it is kind of limited, but the detail on it is absolutely superb. Looking at this Hulk, it really does look like a character that has stepped off the pages of the comics. There were 2 versions of this Hulk, one that was gritting his teeth and one that's screaming. I'm partial to the one that's screaming because it just looks like the Hulk while he's in full rage mode. The torso is very stiff, there's no ab crunch on this guy, but they have taken the opportunity to put a load of detail into his abdominals, on his back, and make him look as muscular as the Hulk always should have been. There's also no butterfly joints on him, which is a little bit of a disappointment because you really want the Hulk to be able to do his sonic clap, but that's something that even today they haven't managed to pull off on a Hulk action figure. Maybe in the future, but that said, the joints that are on there blend seamlessly in with the action figure, and he looks really good. They've got that textured feel on his pants like he's really wearing some kind of jean fabric on him. He's got those little tears at the bottom and his calves. You can feel all of his muscles and his veins and a little bit of texture on his skin too. It's kind of uncanny how much they did with this toy. This is such a good toy that they put out right before they lost the license. They got these out just before. And you know, like I said, he's not super articulated. He's only got single jointed knees and elbows. They don't have a lot of range. You can't look all the way up and all that stuff. But he does have pretty nice ankles. Surprisingly, he's got a lot of ankle articulation. Couldn't believe that one. The 3rd best Marvel Legend of all time is Loki from the Bring On the Bad Guys wave, the Onslaught wave, and to this day, this Loki has not been improved upon. You look at his face, and this looks like the hardened face of Thor's worst enemy, a guy who really does not look too happy to be where he is. But when you examine the rest of him, my goodness, they did a lot with this toy. This is another one where the articulation is not here in abundance, but there's still articulation to be found, and there's a great amount of detail that goes along with it. You can feel the leathery textures over all the costuming that he wears. You feel the patchwork texture of his cape. He's got a loincloth that's made out of soft plastic, so his legs can actually move around a lot. And when you look across the entire action figure, you can tell that each detail is painstakingly sculpted on. Each fold, each rivet, and even the engraving on his sword is present. The only detail that I can find that is just painted on is a ring on one of his fingers. And you can hardly blame Toy Biz for that one, because this thing's already chock full of detail. One of my favorite things about this Loki is trying to decide how I want to pose him with his sword. Do I want him holding it with both hands? Do I want it just kind of draped off to one side while he's raising his fist in imminent victory? The only thing I would change on this Loki is maybe using a little bit more soft plastic on his head so it can move around a bit more. But otherwise, this thing is perfect. They nailed it. The second best Marvel Legend of all time has got to be Man-Thing. This is kind of an unexpected one for me, but I really can't ignore this action figure and how impressive it is. I'm not even a Man-Thing guy, but that's besides the point. This is a really good toy, and the attention to detail on it by Toy Biz is really immaculate. They got a nice little ball joint head thing going on here, which was really unusual for the time because we hadn't seen a lot of movement like that. But also the sticks and the branches on his back and the vines stretching across his whole body. There's a feast of texture on here. It's really nice and gnarly feeling when you hold it in your hands, and he looks really freakish. It's a weird toy to hold, and he kind of freaks me out when I look at him, which I guess is the point of Man-Thing. Besides the head movement, Man-Thing has a pretty decent amount of articulation going for him. He doesn't have the most of any Marvel Legend I've ever seen, but he does have enough to make it work for him and get him in some really nice poses. Fortunately, all those details work really well with the articulation to make this a great representation of the character. Now, before we talk about the #1 Marvel Legend of all time, we gotta talk about the honorable mention. And our honorable mention for this top 5 list is the Juggernaut from Series 6. This is a Marvel Legend. The Juggernaut tested the limits of Toy Biz's clamshell packaging. There weren't a lot of action figures that tested the limit and made you wonder how big can they really go. But this was one of them. He was pressed up against the edge of the box, he was so wide. The only figure that really came close to the Juggernaut, I feel, is the Abomination. That one was so tall and so wide that I don't know how they got him in the box, but they did. A lot of people might not like this one because the proportions are a little screwy, but I think that's what gives Juggernaut his charm. I like depictions of the Juggernaut where he's all out of whack proportionally and so muscular it boggles the mind. This looks like something freakish like what I would have seen in a 1990s X-Men comic book, and personally, I'm a big fan of that sort of thing. One of the great things about Juggernaut is that his helmet is removable, and when you put it on, he looks absolutely psychotic. Like, he's ready to tear apart the X-Men. He's ready to just smash Charles Xavier. And then when you take off his helmet, it really doesn't look any better. He looks about as crazy as he does with the helmet on. You can get this guy in so many different poses. Toy Biz did a great job on his articulation, considering what they had to work with back around 2003, I think it was, when this guy came out. Sometime around then. It was not very far into the Toy Biz era when Juggernaut came out, but still, they made an awesome toy of him. And now, our #1 Marvel Legend of all time is Wolverine. This toy has not been improved upon to this day. This is the greatest Wolverine action figure ever made. Each little detail has been sculpted on his costume. You can see the stitching in the details on him, where you can see all the blue stripes and the blue slashes. You can see the folds in his boots, the trim on his shoulder pads. And there's even some folds on the back of his neck, too. I can't believe that they put that on there. They've even got veins popping out of his arms. The only way they could have put any more detail on this toy, I think, is if they had sculpted the hairs on there. Knowing Toy Biz, they might have taken a crack at it sooner or later if they had had the chance. When you compare him to other toys, he's absolutely minuscule, and that makes sense considering that Wolverine is supposed to only be 5'3". He's supposed to be a tiny guy, he's not supposed to be big. And you know, considering that I've had this toy for the better part of, 16 years or so, the claws have remained relatively straight. They're a little misshapen, but honestly, that's nothing new for a Wolverine toy. Anyone who's ever had a Wolverine has had those claws bend at some point. The only time they haven't bent is when Toy Biz first started making Wolverine toys, and when they did that, they just fused those claws together because they knew that this exact thing was going to happen. This is as close to a perfect Wolverine as I have ever seen. Well, Soulmates, what are your top 5 Marvel Legends of all time? Were you a Toy Biz collector yourselves, or are you mostly a Hasbro guy? Were you not around for the Toy Biz stuff, or maybe you weren't around for the Toy Biz stuff, but you've still gone back and found it anyway? I don't know, guys. Let me know in the comments what your top 5 Marvel Legends of all time are. I would love to hear from you. I'll be back again soon with another top 5 Marvel Legends list. And until then, with love from me to you, bye-bye.